Good afternoon. This is the National Geographic Channel, and I'm Teresa Swindlehurst.
I'm Emily Schneider.
I'm Emily Gotthard.
And I'm Amanda Vassell. We are here to discuss the Exxon Valdez Oil Spill that occurred in 1989 on March 24th in Alaska's Prince William Sound. Approximately 250,000 barrels of oil spilled into Prince William Sound's Bligh Reef and were lost.
This was considered one of the worst human-caused marine environmental disasters to ever occur.
And now over to Emily Gotthard, who will tell us how the atmosphere was affected by this tragedy.
Thank you, Emily. The Exxon Valdez oil spill has affected the atmosphere. During the cleanup process, oil was burned, which released methane and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This resulted in the greenhouse effect. Another way that the oil spill has affected the atmosphere is by contributing greatly to global warming. Crude oil is a major cause of global warming, and crude oil was spilled in the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Because of the oil spill, global warming in Alaska may be a factor in the declining bird population. Because specific species of birds require certain temperature ranges, and if they are seabirds, the water has to have a certain temperature, salinity, turbidity, currents, nutrients, and depth. With global warming increasing in Alaska as a result of the spill, conditions are being altered and seabirds are dying. And now over to Teresa Swindlehurst with more on how the populations of the animals in Prince William Sound were affected.
Thank you, Emily. The populations were greatly affected by the oil spill. At least 250,000 seabirds, 2,800 sea otters, 300 harbor seals, 250 bald eagles, 22 killer whales, and billions of salmon and herring eggs were killed. The invertebrate communities living beneath the surface have failed to recover as a result of the cleanup by high-pressure hot water washing. These species populations have been reduced greatly. The animals that consume these animals will have to either find other food or become weaker and die without it. These animals will die as well. And now over to Emily Schneider with more information on how food webs were affected by this disaster.
Thank you, Teresa. As Teresa had said, many animals were killed and many more were contaminated. Sea otters help to keep kelp forests healthy by eating sea urchins, which graze on the kelp. Without as many sea otters, the sea urchins are abundant and there are no kelp forests. Rocky beaches were stripped of their plant coverings due to high-pressure hot water washings. Many organisms use the plants for food, or they use the plants to their advantage. When there are little to no plants covering the rocks, the organisms that use them for food will either have to find other food or they will die. The organisms that use the plants to their advantage, perhaps for gripping the rocks or for shelter, will have to relocate or they will die as well. Intertidal animals are still contaminated by the oil that remains in the sediments and in the water. The organisms that prey upon these animals will either have to find other food or they will have oil in their systems after consuming them. The oil will either weaken the animals, cause them to become sick, or even possibly kill them. Now over to Amanda Vassell with more information on the succession of this oil spill.
Thank you, Emily. The herring, clam, mussel, pigeon, guillemot, black oyster catcher, and sea otter populations are still on the road to recovery. Some of the rocky beaches that had been stripped of their plant coverings were left as bare rock, while the plants on others returned quickly. Intertidal animals are still contaminated by the oil that remains in sediments in the water. The animal populations will take a long time to recover from this tragic event, as well as the water in the oceans. The animals will recover once the water, atmosphere, and substrate return to normal. People have learned that the long and short-term effects of this kind of event can be hard to identify, but they are very important to understand.
Thank you, Amanda. All of the different things that we've talked about here are all connected in one way or another.
The atmospheric changes affected the populations. The population changes affected the food webs. And the changes in the food web affected the succession.
But the most valuable lesson learned is that human-caused environmental disasters like this can greatly damage our ecosystems.
Now, efforts are being made to prepare for another oil spill. We will be prepared to try and save as much as we can if this disaster happens again. Thank you for watching the National Geographic Channel, and we hope that you enjoyed our report.
The sources listed here are sources that were used in the making of this report. We have many sources that we used.
Continuation of the sources.
We used very many sources in this report. because of all of the information that was put into this report.